Today we're going to be working 3 examples of how to multiply decimals. For the first one, we have 3 6/10 times 4 1/10. So the way I'm going to set this up, with multiplying decimals, we do not have to line up our decimals. However, it does seem to work out here, but that won't be necessarily the situation in numbers 2 and 3. So what we want to do is we want to set this up just as if they were normal whole numbers, and we're going to count the amount of places behind each decimal. So that's going to be 1. Here we have 1. So in our final product, we know we have to have a total of 2 spaces behind our decimal. So now we can go ahead and get started solving this. The first number we're going to distribute is the 1. So 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. We're done distributing the 1, so we're just going to cross this out, and we're going to replace that here with a 0. I like to shade mine in just so I know and tell myself that that is just my placeholder. Now we're going to distribute the 4. 4 times 6 is 24. Carry my 2. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. Done with that 2. I'm also through with the 4 now. I can add my 2 products. 6 plus 0 is 6. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then you bring down your 4 and your 1. So now I'm just going to bring this up here so we can see better. So we see that we have a 1, 4, 7, 6. We don't want to automatically put a comma right here. So because we have to have our decimal, we have to have 2 places behind our decimals. So if we're going to have 2 places, we're going to start at the end, and I'm just going to kind of take it back in. 1, 2. So I've counted how many places should be behind this decimal, which is 2. So my overall product is 14 76/100, which is the value of x. For my second problem, I have 4 times 1500. Now, the students know, we've talked about commutative property several times, so they know with multiplication, with the commutative property, we can switch this order. It works for multiplication as well as addition. So even though if we were to write the 4 on top, this is how it would appear. But that makes it harder for our students, and they know that it's easier for them to understand if they just write it this way. You can still multiply this out, but we're actually going to use this second way of writing it here. Just going to erase that just so we don't get confused. There we go. Okay, so now we can go ahead and find the product of 1500ths times 4. So the first thing we want to do is, again, count those decimal spaces. So 1, 2. Now we don't see or visually see a decimal. We know there's an invisible one right here behind the 4, but if you don't see it, we're still going to represent that with a 0 and a total of 2 places behind our decimal at the very end. So now we're going to distribute the 4. So 4 times 5 is 20. Put our 0, carry our 2. 4 times 1, which is 4, plus 2 is 6. And then 4 times 0, which is 0. I'm going to cross off that 2 so we know we're done with it. So now we don't have another number to distribute here. So this is our final product. Now we need to put in our decimal. So we know that 2 places need to be written behind our decimal. Okay, so you have 1 and 2. So our decimal is placed right here. Now some of the students also know that you can write this as a decimal and 6, or you may add that 0. They are all equivalent. So the product of 4 times 1500ths is 60 hundredths, or 6/10. These are all equivalent. For number 3, we have 1 3200ths times 5 8/10. Again, I'm going to set this up normal, just like we would if we were going to multiply 2 whole numbers. We're just throwing in some decimals now. So we're going to count our places. 1, 2. I'm going to label them so we can visually see. 1. This time we have a total number of 3 spaces that need to be behind our decimal in our product. So now we're going to distribute the 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Here's my 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. I'm through distributing my 8. So I'm going to cross that out and place a 0. Here's my placeholder and just shade it in. As I explained before, we like to see that visual. Now we're going to distribute the 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Place my 0, carry my 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. And then 5 times 1 plus 1 is 6. And I'm through distributing that 5. Now I can add my 2 products. 6 plus 0 is 6. 5 plus 0 is 5. 0 plus 6 is 6. And 1 plus 6 is 7. So the number 7, 6, 5, 6. We have to place our decimal. We know this time we have 3 spaces. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. 3 spaces behind our decimal. So 7 and 656 is my 56 thousandths is my product, or the value of x. And that is how you multiply decimals.